Realignment never stops, and it looks like the SEC might be trending toward another big-time edition.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com today. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel over there covering all things college football and the Oklahoma Sooners as well. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. But Jay, so much happened on Thursday. There were so many things that went down between Brent Venables, Ben Arbuckle, and Todd Bates doing the coaches luncheon, Jim Nagy doing an interview, the Jim Nagy show. What are they calling it now? Nagy on site? I don't know. Anyway, Jim Nagy was with Teddy Lehman and Gabe Eichert in Oklahoma City somewhere. And then
A Night with Nagy.
There you go. A Night with Nagy. Thank you very much. I forgot the branding. My apologies to Oklahoma's general manager. But one of the biggest stories was kind of slept on because it was initially reported a couple of days ago that North Carolina might be looking to leave the ACC and find a new home in the SEC.
Yeah, in the midst of all of this, you also had President Trump put out an executive order that, I'm going to be absolutely honest, does not really do anything, but it sounded good. Sounded appealing, I guess you could say. So we'll have to talk about that later this week once we get a lot of that stuff peeled back to understand what's going on. I'm definitely talking about it over my channel on Fair Sports. I've been breaking and reading through it, but me and John's got to go back and forth on this because it's going to be interesting to see the direction that college football goes. But this story with North Carolina is very intriguing, and it sounds like they have interest in starting to shop around and seeing, with their lawsuit being resolved with the ACC and everything, and the potential cost for them to get out of their grant of rights, I guess, is possibly reduced over time. There's a chance that North Carolina is going to pick up the phone and ask the SEC, hey, y'all interested in taking some folks? And to be honest, that's one program I think the SEC would 100% be interested in. It gets you access to the state of North Carolina, while at the same time, a very much rich program, not in football, but definitely in college basketball, especially as the SEC is growing in that capacity. I could see the SEC going after it. If there's anything I could say really about this, John, I think the thing that jumped out the most to me is we're getting now closer and closer to Super Leagues. If the ACC implodes, there will be a dogfight between the Big Ten and the SEC for some of the top programs. And then from there, you're going to have to go ahead and create that Super League because the Big 12 is going to take the leftovers from that. And then it's like, well, we may as well just make a league with those three conferences and call it a day.
It's intriguing because this is a regionally relevant team. It's not reaching across the country to grab another big time program. It's just there. It's right there. I mean, North Carolina is not far from a lot of SEC programs, and it's in a good market, and it is a strong brand. It may not have the football legacy that some of the blue bloods in the SEC have, but they don't have to. They still represent a strong brand with a strong fan base and a university culture that kind of resembles the SEC. I mean, it's going to be a fan base that shows up to games, shows out, creates a great game day atmosphere, and then the basketball element takes it to another level. Baseball, I mean, North Carolina at one point in time did have a really, really strong baseball program. I'm not sure where they're at right now, but that's going to be a program that fits into the mix in baseball as well. Our guy Isaac Shade over at Locked On Tar Heels mentioned some of the sports that the SEC doesn't sponsor that North Carolina is very much a big time player in, lacrosse being one of those. I'll be curious to see what happens down the road there, but yeah, North Carolina to me makes a ton of sense. And if the ACC does find itself losing teams little by little, the SEC to me is going to be the biggest beneficiary of that because so many of their top programs are right there for the SEC to just fold into the conference.
Yeah, they're right there in the, like I said, they're in the footprint.
They're in the footprint.
So adding Clemson is easy because South Carolina's in South Carolina. South Carolina plays each other every year, and they're right there. That's simple. Florida State, Miami, all of that is right there, and it's easy to go. Plus, with North Carolina, you get a school with some really pretty colors. I really love the Carolina blue, and it's fantastic to match everything else that's going in the SEC. So why not? The question's going to be, though, does it make sense to go up to 20 teams? Again, once you get to about 20, you see the other conference, Big Ten's going to do the same. They'll get to about 20. Then at that point, you may as well make a 40-team Super League. What is the point and the value of having a conference with so many teams that it's going to make it even more difficult to figure out a conference champion? That's the issue we have today going even at 16. You're going to start struggling with that at some point. You're going to have a lot of ties. You're going to figure out tiebreakers. And fans don't like tiebreakers. Don't get it twisted. They all hate it. And that's something that they're going to have to figure out long term. So to me, this is just the beginning. Now, granted, this can't happen until probably closer to 2030. So we're about 5 years out before you'll see that grant of rights drop to about 75 million, where those schools can actually stomach getting out of it, because around that time, new TV deals will kick in for like the SEC as well as for the Big Ten. They'll be able to negotiate new TV contracts, and the SEC's already got it to where if they add more teams, they can get more money out of their networks. Well, about that time is a good time to start investigating it. So don't be surprised, especially if Bill Belichick gets them going. Don't be surprised if, you start to hear even more rumbles like this. But I do believe that it makes sense for them to try to pick up the phone and try to get into the SEC.
Well, and if the SEC is going to look to expand, that's a team that's going to make sense. If you end up getting with a Miami or a Florida State or a Clemson, Virginia Tech, like, they may not be a football power right now, but who's going to argue that maybe they don't have the greatest entrance in college football when Enter Sandman blares and they're going crazy in Blacksburg? Like, that's a football town. That's an SEC kind of football town too. So you can let the Big Ten have, the Pitts and the Boston colleges, and they already got Maryland, Wake Forest. They can go up that way as well. But North Carolina, that's an SEC school written all over it, along with some others. But again, the basketball element of this, that's not to be slept on, because the SEC has become so good in basketball as well. Getting regular matchups in the regular season with North Carolina and Kentucky, how great would that be for the sport? Just absolutely awesome. Conference games, home and home games in the regular season. Absolutely wonderful. They'd be fantastic.
Yeah, something that we would all want. We would all love for us to, I would like North Carolina in a non-con. That would be fun, just to go out there and play at Chapel Hill, play a college football game out there just because.
Invitational.
There you go, right? Just get all the Jumpman schools together and let them play some games, right? They should actually make that a requirement. If you all share a sneaker deal or an apparel deal with one of these, with Adidas or Under Armour or Jumpman or Nike, that y'all got to play each other at least once a year. Y'all got to figure that out. And that would be fun to have a Jumpman Invitational where Oklahoma plays like a North Carolina. We're already playing Michigan, so you got that game already lined up. Give us Hey, you know what, John? We talked about non-con yesterday. Why don't we go ahead and just figure this North Carolina one out? Think that would be a good idea. Hey, that would be a great interview for North Carolina, for them to try to work their way in the SEC. Figure out how to play an SEC team every single year up until your exit opportunity comes up.
One thing I think would be really fun is if you do get to 20, 24 teams, just getting rid of your non-conference altogether. Maybe have one kind of preseason type game where you're playing a warm-up game, and then you're just playing inside the conference the rest of the way. Or you're creating a little conference playoff situation for your conference championship.
And then what they do in D2, you can do something similar. And that leads right into the actual national championship. Think it will work, personally.
There's a lot of interesting things that are going to happen in college football over the next 5-10 years. It's constantly evolving. We've seen a lot change over the last decade and a half, and more is changing. What might change this year? Oklahoma, they really might jump up and surprise a lot of people, but it won't be a surprise to Brent Venables. Let's hear what he had to say at the coach's luncheon coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf in the greens, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it more thrilling and leverage FanDuel and get into the games while your friends are out there getting cooked while they're on the beach? Me personally, I love checking them out because they've always got some great daily promotions and makes it more fun ways to bet. And it's easy to get in there. I can do my single game parlay. I can pick a batter. I can pick a pitcher. And I can just sit there and watch all of these bets ride all the way through this ninth inning. And hopefully, Seattle Mariners don't make me look bad. The Atlanta Braves have done some good stuff to help me in some bets. So you never know. But you got to check it out. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, Brent Venables was feeling himself at the Oklahoma coaches luncheon on Thursday. He said there's not a game on the schedule that Oklahoma can't win.
Nope. He's 100% right, too. We've broken down the opponents. We've looked at the data. And the one thing to keep in mind is you're only facing two teams with a returning starting quarterback. Granted, some of these quarterbacks have been in their system for a bit, but only two of them are returning starters. So the opportunity is there. Some of the defenses have seen some refreshes. I mean, Alabama should be really good this year. LSU has an opportunity, but their offensive line is not as good as it was last year. And to be quite honest, a few folks have said they didn't think their line was that good last year either. It sounded good on paper. It just was, but performance-wise, it wasn't all the way there. So, John, when you look at it, Brent Venables just pointed out, our defense did really good things against a lot of these teams without an offense. Now we should have some competency. There really isn't a game on this schedule that we cannot win. We could go 12-0. I'm not saying we're going 12-0, but I'm saying that there's a possibility because the schedule is favorable, especially in the games that are matter. I mean, I think the toughest thing coming for Oklahoma is you got Texas and then you travel to South Carolina the next week. Mm-hmm. Then, you get a home game with Ole Miss and then you travel to Knoxville. That 5-game stretch with Kent State to Tennessee, tough, but you got a bye week before Bama, right? I mean, then you play Missouri and then you play LSU at home, so you got back-to-back homes, right? You get Kent State right before Texas, and Texas has Florida right before Oklahoma. There's a lot of things that could fall in Oklahoma's favor. The key thing is when you look at the schedule, when you look at all of that, I need to know who out there as a new starting quarterback is really going to give Oklahoma a problem. That's the question you've got to figure out is who is that quarterback that's going to come in and shock the conference like Lenore Sellers did last year.
Yeah, and I think more than the quarterback, the only concern maybe I have is, Steve Sarkisian as an offensive coordinator, play caller, because I feel like he can scheme some things up to help Arch be successful where he's not going to necessarily have to drop back and scan the field for 5 seconds to try and find an open guy. They're going to try and scheme some easy things to maybe take advantage of Brent Venables' aggressiveness. We've seen Oklahoma have success against Steve Sarkisian, the 2023 game, but that's about really the only one. Lenoris is good. Garrett Nussmeier is good. I think Arch Manning's going to be good, but I think Oklahoma's defense is going to be up to the task. Will they win those games 13-10? Probably not, but they'll be able to make enough stops in those games to give the offense a chance. And the offense is going to give the defense an opportunity to win some games because it's going to be good. So, it's going to come down to some one-score games in some of these. And you do have tough road trips to Tuscaloosa, to Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, to Williams-Brice in South Carolina. Like, those are going to be tough road trips. But Oklahoma, you get LSU at home. You get Missouri at home. Ole Miss at home. Auburn at home. Obviously, the Red River Showdown is always in Dallas, but that's a back-and-forth matchup all the time. Whether one team is the number one team in the nation and the other team's unranked, doesn't seem to matter. It's a coin flip game. So, man, I'm with Venables. Like, am I predicting Oklahoma to go 12-0? I'm probably not going to be there. I'm not going to go there. But you cannot definitively tell me that every team on their schedule is 100% easily better than Oklahoma. There might be areas where they're better. There might be some areas where they're not. But a lot of these games are going to be really good football games, and they're going to be close football games, and it's going to come down to a break or two in these games. A possession or two, a turnover or two, a penalty or two. It's going to come down to the little things, and the team that executes the little things the right way are going to be the teams that win those games. If Oklahoma can do that, catch some breaks, have some health luck this season, they're going to have a chance to win every single game.
Yeah, and this is in line of what we kind of expected, for this year. Honestly, if there was a year that I thought Oklahoma had a chance to truly compete for something big, it was 2025. This was the season that when I've had conversations talked about, I was like, 2024 should be a good test year to understand what all we need. 2025 should be the year that we have a chance to truly be competitive. Feels like it. Brent Venables feels it. The staff feels it. BV even talked about practice. He talked about how last year, the defense was very dominant last year. This year, you're seeing the offense punch back, and they're fighting back early. So you're getting a punch back early from your offense in practice. Then the defense wins here, and then the offense wins there. That is what you want. That's an encouraging thing. Practice tells you everything you need to know. And when Hugh Freeze said the thing that he said, during media days, and Cole Kublik was talking about it on Josh Pate's show, hey, don't dumb down your defense to make your quarterback look good. Your quarterback's got to figure that out. Because if this is the toughest defense they'll see all season, and they figured out a lot of stuff, they should have a really good year. That's the critical things. Plus, this is, practice is built to where the defense is going to have an advantage anyway. But if your offense can find a way to work their way through it, especially going against a really good defense, man, that means your quarterback's probably going to be something special. We've seen that happen once before. That led to some big awards. I'm just hoping that we can get close to that this year.
Forged in fire. Iron sharpens iron. You hear that all the time. And Oklahoma's got a roster that can actually test each other. And that's exciting, man. Again, this is going to be a really, really fun year. I think Oklahoma's going to be in a lot of really competitive games. And Oklahoma's going to come out on top in some of those games that maybe you don't expect them to win. Maybe they lose a game that you expect them to win. That's just the nature of the SEC. That's the nature of this conference and how competitive it is. Will Oklahoma win them all? I don't know. But they're going to have a chance, man. And they're going to be one of those teams that threatens every single team they play, because it comes back to, what does win championships? What wins it? Defense wins championships. And Oklahoma's going to have a really good defense. A lot of people are projecting it could potentially be a top 10 defense this year. And if that's the case, then why not Oklahoma?
Why not? That's it. Why not? Why not Oklahoma? If this team, we just can't wait till fall camp starts next week.
I cannot
we just
wait.
need football to happen so we can get out of this talking season. We need to hurry up. But yeah, this team is built for this year, right? Next year, depending on who comes back, could be something too. But this year, this is the one. I need to see this happen. So if Brent Venables is seeing this in defense, Todd Bates, Ben Arbuckle, and they are up there talking about it, if they're seeing the highlights that we're talking about, this should be the year. This should be the year where we completely shock everybody. So let's go.
Yeah, Brent Venables wouldn't be getting out there saying that there's a chance that Oklahoma could win every single game unless he didn't truly believe that. I like my coach having that kind of confidence, whether it's right or not, because that kind of stuff helps breed confidence within the rest of the team, that they believe, hey, you know what? We can go out there and we can win every game. And you got to believe it before you can actually go do it. So love it. More of that, Brent Venables. Keep talking like that, chest out. Let's go. We're less than a week from fall camp. We are just over a month away from the start of the 2025 college football season. Who are going to be the breakout players? The coaches talked about some guys that I'm excited, man. I'm excited to hear that these guys are taking the next step. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, the coaches also mentioned some possible breakout players, and a guy that really stuck out when I was looking at all the quotes and watching some of the footage, Dominic Williams. They're saying he's taken his game to the next level.
Yeah, it sounds like he's actually stepped up into an even bigger leadership role. Like he was a leader last year on defense, and players talked about him being very influential in their play and pushing everybody. But it sounds like he's gotten bigger. BV and Bates talked about how he's transformed his body, that he's over 320. He's taking everything seriously, and he's really pushing the young players and stuff too. So you really look at it, hey, that's the player that you need to step out. And they talked about not only him, but also on the defensive line. David Stone is set to have a massive breakout year. And we talked about that here a few weeks back when Stone hit the portal and came back. But he's one that we're expecting. He's from that class where him and Jaden Jackson should be running things on the defensive line. But the good thing is they still got veterans in front with Dominic Williams as well as Grayson Halton. So it's going to be a nice mixture of those four playing a ton this season right there in the interior. And I expect them to wreak havoc all season long.
I think what was underrated about Dominic Williams coming last year, and we may not have talked about it enough, is that he came after spring ball. So he was only there for summer workouts and for fall camp. And we know that Brent Venables' defense is complicated. We know that the strength and conditioning that's expected at Oklahoma is different than what's expected everywhere else. I'm not sitting here saying that he wasn't ready to play, that he didn't know what he was doing, but how much of a deeper understanding of the scheme will he have this year? How much better will his body be prepared for the rigors of SEC play this year than what it was last year? Because he's had a full offseason now with Schmitty and the strength and conditioning staff. He's had a full offseason with Brent Venables and the defensive staff and Todd Bates, and getting a better understanding of his role to where now he can go play a lot more confidently, a lot more free, because he understands the scheme better. Experience matters in the scheme. When you don't have 2-3 years of experience and you're coming in and you're now like, oh, okay, I got to be a starter on this team. Okay. You just are trying to not get by, but like there's a deeper level of understanding. The more you play in it, the more you practice in it, the more you do film study in it. And so, man, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go have like an all conference type season this year, because remember, he was a big time producer at TCU, had big time production, sacks, tackles for losses, pressures. He was that kind of guy. Hopefully he can be that this year.
And we saw glimpses of it this year. He became a focal point for defenses. And that's what you want. You want a big interior dude that teams put all their attention to, and it allows everybody else to go off. And this year, the problem with this defensive line is, who you going to key in on? You don't want to key in on Jaden Jackson. It's going to leave Dominic open in them edges. You don't want to do just Dominic. You don't want to do just R. Mason Thomas. You don't want to do a combination of Marvin Jones Jr., Daniel Collier, PJ Adebaware, and Taylor Wine. If anything, it'll be the players they don't know. But if you got a starting five of R. Mason Thomas with Marvin Jones Jr. and an interior with Dominic and Jaden Jackson, and then Stone and Grayson Halton right behind them, it's going to be tough to be able to key in on really one person, because all of them can do stuff. You've synced them with your eyes do it. So if that's the case, Oklahoma's going to, of course, have different schemes to make it even tougher on teams, but they're going to have to figure out how to get rid of the ball quickly. And that, to me, is where your linebacker play is really going to come in.
The coaches also mentioned a couple wide receivers have stood out to them so far this offseason. One of those was Zion Kearney, a guy that we've been talking about here on Locked On Sooners. Ben Arbuckle said Zion Kearney has big-time player written all over him.
Yep. We've been hyping him up. I've already been told by a few people, hey, man, calm down on the ZK hype. We want him to stay under the radar. I totally get it. I smell what the Rock is cooking. But at the same time, we can't be ridiculous and think that we're not overly hyped about him, which this is going to lead to a question. John, will be our topic for Monday. I'm going to make note of it right now. Which coaches need to break out this year? One on offense, one on defense. Who's the coaches that need to have a big year? Because, when you think about Zion Kearney, he was a recruit. He wasn't a transfer. So, of course, you need to, Emmett Jones has got to get some of that going for himself, right? He's got to be able to show that not only can he recruit good, he can develop good. Because, of course, we've seen him recruit some solid players, especially in the portal. Deion Burks, hell, Andrew Anthony was really good when he got here. You saw Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson all break out underneath him this first year. We need to do that again, and he's going to have to show it again. Even though he's shown it once, you got to keep showing it. It's always, what have you done for me lately, not what you did for me last year, 2 years ago. You got to show me today. So that's going to be critical. So we'll talk about that more in depth on Monday. But I like hearing that the coaches are singling out specific players for the fans to keep the eyes on. The other one they talked about was Satania. When Ben Arbuckle mentioned him, John, I know you had a massive smile on your face. That was gold to me.
Yeah, he said, if you need something done right, you look towards Isaiah Satania.
Boom.
That tells me that he's going to get a lot of snaps this year, and he's going to have an opportunity to make some big plays because he is a game-breaking type player, somebody who can take the top off the defense. He can win in the short area because he's just elusive. He's got good lateral agility, and he's quick. So he's going to be able to win out of the slot, but also he'll take some verticals out of the slot and win deep as well. So excited about Isaiah Satania. I think what's encouraging is they've got several guys that they're excited about. Deion Burks is somebody that they feel like made a lot of improvement this offseason, and that doesn't even include Giovanni Gibson, Jaden Gibson, guys we know have had big-time moments, either Giovanni Gibson in spring ball, Jaden Gibson back in the 2023 season. This wide receiver room is going to be better. It's just going to be better. Obviously, it's not going to take much for it to be better than what it was last year, but I think you're going to have a group that is going to be dangerous, and not just against the Temples or Kent States or Illinois States. You're going to have a group that's going to be dangerous against Michigan, against Auburn, against Texas, that they're going to create some big plays in the passing game. And that to me is the most exciting thing, is like, you might not get Marquise Brown level production down the field, but if you get one or two deep shots a game that you can complete, that's absolutely huge for this offense.
Satania is intriguing to me because when we talked about our wide receivers earlier this week, for me, I really want to see how they leverage him with Burks, because there's got to be packages where both of them on the field together. Mm-hmm. There's got to be. You've got to go out there and really put stress on defenses with their capabilities. And just hearing that Satania literally does everything right, like you put him on the field and he's running the routes right, he's getting everything done right, and you're like, okay, yeah, this makes sense as to why a lot of Arkansas fans were kind of a little upset whenever he bounced out. So sound like we got ourselves a good one. And I think in this situation, we should be able to see some very, very creative offenses out of Ben Arbuckle, especially when he has all those wide receivers lined up. That's what I'm ready to see.
Yeah, little bunch formations with Deion Burks and Isaiah Satania, and corners are going to have to try and cover those guys coming out of their breaks. That's just going to be nasty, absolutely nasty. So many nuggets that we didn't even get to in this one. What Jim Nagy had to say about non-conference play, that's going to be one that we have to at least keep in the back of our minds for next week, because his answer was fantastic. If you hadn't seen it, he said we should play Oklahoma State and Nebraska every year. Something to talk about maybe a little bit next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about that on Monday's episode. Putting a note for it now.
We'll save it. All right. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Make sure you follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But For Jay Smith, I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you next time. Boomer
Sooner.